The text came at 6:12 p.m., just as I was smoothing the front of my navy blue dress, the one I always wore to family dinners. Not too flashy. Melissa hated flashy, but not too plain either. I'd worn it so many times it felt like armor. The message lit up my phone screen before I even had a chance to put on my coat. "You're not invited to dinner. Melissa doesn't want you there." It was from David, my son, the one I used to rock to sleep during thunderstorms, who once held my hand too tight at kindergarten drop-off and asked if he could marry me when he grew up. That same boy now texting me like I was some unwanted obligation, like a burden. I sat down in my armchair without even realizing I'd moved. The phone rested in my palm, still warm, still glowing, as if waiting for me to answer a question I never saw coming. Around me, everything was quiet. Too quiet. The clock ticked steadily above the fireplace, and beside it, a photo of Robert and me on our 50th anniversary. His eyes sparkled even in the picture. I remember what he used to say, "Miriam, don't ever let anyone diminish you, not even family." I never had his strength. He could draw lines when needed, say no without blinking. Me, I believed love meant giving, over and over again, even when nothing came back. My eyes wandered to the coffee table, where glossy brochures still lay half-folded. Riverbend Estates, luxury townhomes by the water. Their new house, the one I paid $120,000 towards 6 months ago. "It's an investment, Mom," David had said. "You'll have your own space when you visit." I hadn't realized visit meant standing on the porch unwelcome. And now, not even that. Just yesterday, David insisted I come to dinner. "We have some exciting news," he said. I remember how his voice had that practiced enthusiasm, the kind he used when trying to convince me to write another check. Maybe I should have seen this coming. Maybe I had and just chose not to. My heart was beating too fast. My mouth was dry. I tapped my glasses on, hoping, stupidly, that I'd misread the text. But no, the words were still there, still cruel in their brevity, still signed with his name. I stood up, wandered the room, tried to remember what I'd done wrong. Was it the time I asked too many questions about their mortgage? The time I commented on the kitchen design Melissa picked? Or maybe, just maybe, they never wanted me there in the first place. Maybe the invitations had always been performative. Thin smiles, overly polite hugs, conversations that left me cold. And now, for the first time, they were simply being honest. I walked to my writing desk, opened the top drawer. Inside was a folder labeled David. It was the thickest one. Receipts, statements, contracts, a million paper cuts from a lifetime of helping. There was the $50,000 for his startup that failed in 6 months, the car loan for Melissa, the private school fees for Brandon, their son with learning needs, the new roof for their house, the dental work, the therapy, the birthday trips. I didn't remember saying yes to all of it, but I must have, because there it was, all in black and white. Every time I'd written a check, I thought I was buying closeness. What I really did was rent it, and the lease just expired. The phone buzzed again. My hand flinched. For one wild second, I thought maybe he changed his mind. Maybe he realized what that message sounded like. But it wasn't David. It was Grace. "Grandma, are you still coming? I miss you." I stared at Grace's message, heart pinched in a place that had gone numb hours ago. Grace was different. She always had been. Even when the others treated me like an afterthought, she found reasons to check in, to sit beside me at gatherings, to help carry dishes, to ask how I was really doing. But how do you explain to a child that her father no longer sees his own mother as family? I wrote back carefully, "Sweetheart, your parents decided it's best if I stay home tonight. But I miss you two, more than you know." She replied within seconds, "Dad told me you had to come. He said it all week." My stomach turned. So Grace didn't know. She hadn't been told. She would be there, waiting, for someone who had been uninvited. Someone who paid for the roof over her head but wasn't welcome under it. I looked back at the David folder on my desk. My hands moved before my mind caught up. I pulled out every record, every receipt. $50,000 here, $3,200 there, dental work, car insurance, roof replacement. The kitchen remodel alone was $17,800. All justified, all for the family. I had believed it then. I had wanted to. But sitting there, watching the numbers pile into something monstrous, I saw it clearly for the first time. It wasn't love. It was dependency. And I had enabled every bit of it. Every time I said yes, I trained them not to look at me as a mother, but as an open tab. And so I stood up, walked slowly to the kitchen counter, picked up the phone. Cascade First Bank. This is Danielle. How may I assist you? Yes, good evening. This is Miriam Clark. I need to discuss the automatic transfers from my account. Certainly, Ms. Clark. For verification, I answered her questions one by one, my voice steadier than I expected, as if the plan had always been there, waiting to be carried out. How can I help you today? She asked again once my identity was confirmed. I'd like to stop all automatic transfers, effective immediately. A pause. All transfers, ma'am? You have quite a few, I'm aware. Please pause everything. And also, revoke the power of attorney currently held by my son, David Clark. This time, the silence on the line was longer. Understood. I'll place a temporary hold tonight. For full cancellation, you'll need to come in to sign. I'll be there tomorrow morning. All right, Ms. Clark. Just so you know, that includes 174 recurring payments. 174, I whispered, more to myself than her. I had no idea there were that many. After I hung up, I remained by the counter for several minutes, my legs trembling slightly but my chest lighter, as though some massive weight I'd carried for decades had slipped off and fallen to the floor. I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry. I just stood there in silence in my own kitchen, in my own home, for once, not thinking about what someone else needed. Then I made a cup of tea. Not for guests. Not because someone was coming over. Just for me. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was restless, quite the opposite. For the first time in years, the silence in my home wasn't heavy. It wasn't waiting for footsteps or phone calls or the ping of a new request. It just was. Still. Soft. Safe. I sat by the window in my robe, tea cooling beside me, watching the streetlights stretch across the pavement like golden threads. Across the room, the framed photo of Robert seemed to shimmer slightly. He would have been proud, not because I cut them off, but because I finally remembered who I was. I whispered, "You were right, Rob." I should have said no a long time ago. The phone buzzed again, breaking the stillness. For a moment, I thought maybe it was Grace, sending another sweet message. But no, it was David, a single line. "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen. Not today, I thought. Not tonight. I wasn't ready to listen to justifications, to guilt, to negotiations masked as apologies. So I left it unread. I didn't owe him my attention, not anymore. Instead, I opened my notes app and began typing a message of my own, one I hadn't decided whether to send yet, but one that felt like the start of something. From now on, you'll need to handle things yourselves. Good luck. I stared at the sentence for a long time. It felt cold, almost cruel, but then I remembered the tone of his text, the casual dismissal. No apology, no explanation, just, "You're not invited." They had chosen distance. I was just accepting it. The next morning, I woke up without an alarm. No list of errands. No scheduled payments. No expectations. I made breakfast slowly, just toast and eggs. But I plated it nicely, poured fresh orange juice, and sat down at the table like it was a celebration. In some small way, it was. After I cleaned up, I dressed with care, not for anyone else, but for myself. A soft cardigan, slacks that didn't pinch, and a scarf Robert once bought me at a flea market. I took the folder marked David and walked out into the cool Oregon morning. The air smelled of damp leaves and something beginning again. At the bank, I arrived 15 minutes before opening. I stood at the front door, folder clutched like a shield. People passed by, chatting, sipping lattes, heading somewhere. They had no idea that, for me, this was a day of quiet revolution. When the doors unlocked, I stepped inside. A young woman at the desk smiled politely. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "I need to speak with Lydia. Lydia Martin. She's been helping our family for years." Within minutes, I was seated in a small office. Lydia looked almost exactly the same as I remembered. Glasses low on her nose, hair in a tight bun, warm but no nonsense. "Ms. Clark," she said, folding her hands. "I got your request last night. Everything's been temporarily frozen. Is there something more permanent you'd like to discuss?" I nodded. "I want to cancel everything. For good. And I want David's access to my accounts revoked permanently." She hesitated, took off her glasses, and began wiping them with a handkerchief. "You're sure? This is a significant step." "I'm sure," I said. No trembling. No second-guessing. "All right," she said quietly. "Let's begin." As she typed, she handed me a thick binder, printouts of all my automatic transactions from the past year. "Please review these while I process the documents. You may want to keep some of them active." I opened the binder. First entry: mortgage for David and Melissa's riverfront home, $3,800 per month. Next, Melissa's premium car insurance, $850 per quarter. Private school tuition, club memberships, dental specialist, college fund for Grace, the only one I didn't regret for even a second. Each line was a memory, a request, a tearful phone call, a guilt trip, a manipulation, a small surrender. I flipped page after page of my own erosion. I set the binder down slowly, palms resting flat against its worn edges. My eyes lingered on the page detailing Grace's college tuition. That one I'd keep, I decided. Just that. Because, unlike the others, Grace never treated my help as a right. She treated it as a gift, and she always said thank you. Lydia slid a document toward me. "This revokes David's power of attorney over all your financial accounts," she said. "And this one cancels all previously authorized recurring payments. If you agree, just sign here and here." I picked up the pen. No hesitation. No shaky hands. I signed both pages in clean, steady strokes. Lydia didn't speak right away. She studied me with the same quiet attentiveness she'd shown Robert all those years ago. "You seem lighter today," she said. "I am," I replied simply, for the first time in a long time. By noon, I was sitting across from Thomas Whitman in his downtown law office. He'd been our family attorney since Robert was alive. His silver beard had grown fuller, his glasses thicker, but his tone hadn't changed. Calm, clear, respectful. "Miriam Clark," he said with a warm smile. "It's been too long. What can I help you with today?" "I want to change my will," I said. "And I want to set up an irrevocable living trust. One that no one touches without my direct consent." He blinked once, slowly. "Family matter?" I nodded. He didn't press further. He opened a drawer and pulled out a legal pad. "Then let's get to work." The next hour passed quietly as he explained every clause, every implication. How the trust would protect my assets. How it would ensure that after I'm gone, my legacy wouldn't be hijacked by the ungrateful or the entitled. How it would reflect who I truly wanted to benefit from all those years of sacrifice. I listened. I asked questions. I absorbed it all, not with fear or confusion, but with clarity, with purpose. When we finished, Thomas looked at me and said, "I'll have the full paperwork ready by the end of the week. You've taken a smart path here, Miriam. You've done it right." I gave a soft nod. I'm not trying to punish anyone. I'm just done being erased. He offered a respectful smile. "Most people wait too long to take control. You didn't. That's rare. And it's admirable. As I left his office, my phone vibrated. 15 missed calls from David. 7 from Melissa. 3 from Brandon. Not one from Grace. And somehow that didn't surprise me. Grace always knew when to wait. When silence spoke louder than panic. I walked past the coffee shop on the corner and into a small grocery store I hadn't visited in years. For the first time in ages, I shopped only for myself. My bread, my cheese, my favorite lemon tea. I didn't pause to wonder what kind of cereal Brandon preferred, or what snacks Melissa liked to bring in the car. I wasn't planning anyone's meals, just mine. At home, I found Grace sitting on the front steps, arms wrapped around her knees. She ran to meet me as soon as she saw the bags in my arms. "Grandma," she said breathlessly, "why haven't you answered your phone? I've been calling all day." "I had a busy day, sweetheart," I said gently. "Help me with these?" She followed me inside and set the bags on the kitchen counter. Her face was pale. "Dad's freaking out," she said. "He said everything's blocked." "What happened?" I didn't rush to explain. I filled the kettle, wiped the counter, put away the milk. Then I looked at her, level and calm. "Your father canceled my invitation to dinner," I said. "He said your mother didn't want me there. So I decided it was time to reassess everything." Grace's mouth dropped open. "He what?" "No. He said all week how important it was that you come. He never told us you weren't coming." I showed her the message. Her hand flew to her mouth as she read it. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Grandma, I didn't know. That's awful. That's so cruel." I poured her a cup of tea. I've spent decades helping them, paying for things, cleaning up messes, hoping that one day I'd be appreciated. But if I'm not even welcome at the table I helped build, it's time to reevaluate. Grace's eyes filled with tears. "I've seen it for years. The way they use you, especially Mom. I've tried to talk to Dad, but he always defends her. Says I don't understand adult problems." I smiled softly. "You understand more than they think, and I've always known that." Grace stayed for a long time that evening. We didn't speak of money or betrayal for a while. We talked about her classes, her roommate, the books she was reading. We made sandwiches, drank more tea, and for the first time in years, it felt like family, not performance. But as she gathered her coat to leave, she hesitated near the door. "Grandma," she said, turning back to me, "what happens now? I mean, they have so many expenses. Brandon's school, the house, everything." "They'll figure it out," I said simply. "They're adults. David has a good job. Melissa's a successful realtor. They'll adapt once the safety net is gone." Grace opened her mouth to say something more, but before she could, my phone vibrated again. "David." I sighed, reached over, and silenced it without checking the screen. "You're not going to answer?" she asked quietly. "Not tonight," I replied. "Let him sit with it for once. Let him feel the weight." She looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. "You seem different, stronger." "I feel different," I said. "For the first time in decades, I'm not trying to rescue anyone." She nodded and stepped forward, wrapping her arms around me tightly. "I'm proud of you, Grandma. Just promise me you won't go back." I held her for a long moment. "I won't." After she left, I returned to the kitchen, checked the mail, and found it there, my first confirmation that the system had shifted. An email notification. Payment attempt failed Brandon's tuition. It hit me like a small, satisfying click in a lock I had never dared touch. Not because I wanted him to suffer, but because I wanted him to grow. I settled into my armchair, opened an old photo album, and let my mind drift. Photos of birthday parties, fishing trips, snowmen half melted in the front yard. Robert holding baby David. Me on the porch with Brandon in my lap. It looked like a happy life, and in some ways it was. But even then I could see it. I was always the one behind the scenes, never sitting, never resting. Always giving. The next day, I heard from Brandon. He called in the afternoon, voice tight, words measured. Grandma. Yes, Brandon. It's true? You shut everything down. It's true. There was silence on the other end. Then, but why? I never did anything to you. You didn't need to, I said gently. You were raised in it. You assumed I'd always be there. Always paying. Always fixing. I don't know how to do this. I can't afford my rent. My car's impounded. I'm completely stuck. You're not stuck. You're just unprepared. And now you get to learn. His voice cracked slightly. I'm trying. Really. I just didn't expect this. I didn't say anything. I let the silence hang. Gave him space to sit in the discomfort. Then, quietly, he added, Mr. Whitman called. He said you told him to reach out to me. I did. He offered me a part-time job. Filing, running documents. It's not much, but I said yes. I want to try. For the first time in that call, I smiled. That's a good start. I just thank you for pushing me. And I'm sorry, Grandma, for taking you for granted. I know, I said, but you have to earn this life now, not inherit it. He paused, then asked, barely above a whisper, Do you still love me? My breath caught. Of course I do. But from now on, I love you with boundaries, not bank transfers. It was a Thursday when David called again. This time he didn't sound angry, just tired. Mom, we need to talk. All of us, as a family. No drama, just a conversation. He asked if they could come over on Saturday at 2 p.m. I said yes, not because I owed them anything, but because I had nothing left to fear. Saturday came. I made myself tea, wore my softest sweater, opened the blinds to let the Oregon light fill the living room. I was calm, not ready for a fight, but ready to listen and ready to be done. At exactly 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I peeked out the window. 3 cars in the driveway. On the porch, Melissa in a beige trench coat, David behind her, Brandon to the side. Grace stood a little further back. But there were others too, Melissa's parents, her sister, and brother-in-law. Even some people I didn't recognize. A crowd, as if this were an intervention, or worse, a tribunal. I opened the door and stood in the frame. Hi, Melissa said, her tone clipped but sugar-coated. We're all here to talk, to find a way forward. Together. I looked past her at the faces gathering behind. Only David, Brandon, and Grace. The rest of you, this isn't your house. And it's not your business. Melissa blinked, stunned. But we're all family. No, I said. You're relatives. That's not the same. David stepped forward, trying to diffuse the tension. Let's just go in. Please. They entered. The rest remained outside, shuffling awkwardly on the sidewalk like they were waiting for a verdict. Inside, we sat in the living room, me on one chair, them lined along the couch like students awaiting grades. No one spoke at first. Then David broke the silence. Mom, what happened? Why so suddenly? Why did you cut everything off? I folded my hands in my lap. It wasn't sudden. It was silent. 20 years of it. I gave and gave and gave, and you all just kept taking. Not once did any of you stop to ask if I was okay. Not once. David rubbed his forehead. Brandon stared at the carpet. Grace sat beside him, quiet but alert. Melissa jumped in. It's not fair to punish everyone over one message. It wasn't one message, I said. It was the moment I realized that message was the truth. That I wasn't welcome anymore. Not just at your dinner table, but in your lives. But you offered to help, David said, voice rising. You always said yes. I said yes because I loved you, and you mistook that love for obligation. Melissa's voice sharpened. You can't just erase people over hurt feelings. You can't rewrite family history. I'm not rewriting anything, I said. I'm just no longer financing it. Her jaw clenched. We're about to lose the house. Brandon can't stay in school. This affects everyone. Then maybe, I said gently, It's time you all learn how to live within your means. Melissa shot to her feet. You'll regret this. When you're sick, alone, when no one's there to take care of you. I stood too. I've taken care of myself for 77 years. I'll be fine. David looked like he wanted to speak, but couldn't find the words. Brandon finally lifted his eyes. Grandma, he said, voice low. I started the job with Mr. Whitman. I'm learning. I want to do this on my own. I nodded. That's all I ever hoped for. Grace moved to my side, slid her arm around mine. I'm with you, she whispered. Melissa stared, frozen. This isn't over. No, I said. It's just finally honest. They left. All of them. Grace stayed for a moment longer, hugged me tight, then followed. And when the door closed behind them, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt light. The next morning, the house was still. The kind of stillness that doesn't feel lonely, just earned. I woke up without any pressure pressing on my chest, without a list of bills or calls or favors to return. I made myself a breakfast I actually enjoyed. Toast with marmalade, a soft-boiled egg, coffee strong enough to make my spine straighten. I sat by the window and let the light pour over my hands. This was what peace tasted like. Later that day, Thomas Whitman stopped by. He never rushed, just laid out the final documents across my kitchen table with the precision of someone who's done this for 30 years. Everything's ready, he said. The irrevocable trust, the revised will, all notarized, all filed. I signed each page, slowly, deliberately. My name in ink across boundaries I should have drawn decades ago. With every signature, I felt something come back to me, control, dignity, identity. The breakdown was simple. I would remain the sole beneficiary while alive. Upon my passing, Grace would receive 40%. 10% would go to charity. The rest, split as I saw fit. David and Brandon would receive the bare minimum required by law. Melissa was excluded entirely. As Thomas packed up the papers, he looked at me carefully. Miriam, he said, I've worked with hundreds of families. Most people don't do what you just did. They wait. They hope. They rot in guilt until there's nothing left to protect. I was one of those people, I said, until last week. He nodded, offered a small smile. It takes strength to say enough. When he left, I stood in the doorway for a long time, my hand resting on the folder like it was a shield. That's what freedom looked like. Not anger, not vengeance, just a firm, quiet line that said this is where I begin. That afternoon, Brandon showed up again. He looked different. Not in his clothes, they were still rumpled, his eyes still tired, but in his posture. He walked like someone who had hit a wall and finally decided to build a door instead. Grandma, he said, not waiting to be asked inside. Can I sit? I nodded and gestured to the kitchen. He sank into a chair, rubbed his face, and exhaled hard. I'm in trouble. Real trouble. Rent's due. My car's in a lot. My bank account is frozen. I'm scared. I poured tea, set it in front of him. And what do you want from me? He didn't answer right away. Then, I'm not asking for money. Not a loan. Just, I don't know, a place to think, to reset. I studied him. The same boy who used to fall asleep on my chest now sat before me. Cracked, but not broken. For once, he wasn't playing a role. He was just a young man trying. I'm not giving you cash, I said, but I gave your number to Mr. Whitman. He has work, filing, archiving. It won't make you rich, but it'll help you breathe again. He looked at me with something in his eyes I hadn't seen in years, a mixture of shame and gratitude. You still love me, he whispered. Very much, I said, but not with dollars anymore. With boundaries, with honesty. He nodded. That's fair. When he left, I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I just cleaned the table, watered the plant in the window, and opened a catalog I'd tucked away for years. On the cover, Italy, vineyards, stone villas, sunlight on cobbled streets, Grace had once asked me where I'd go if I could go anywhere. Italy, I had told her. Robert always wanted to take me there. His grandfather was born in Florence. I never went. There was always something more important. David's mortgage, Brandon's school, Melissa's renovations. But now, I had no one to finance but myself. 6 months later, the sun warmed my shoulders as I sat on the terrace of a quiet restaurant tucked in the hills of Tuscany. Before me was a glass of crisp white wine, a basket of warm bread, and a plate of handmade pasta that smelled like summer. There was no noise, no buzzing phones, no urgent messages, just the gentle rustle of vineyard leaves in the breeze and the sound of Eleanor's pen scratching into her journal across the table. She had insisted on coming with me, of course. "You're not running away," she told me. "You're arriving." Every day she wrote about our adventures. Every night we walked until our legs ached and our cheeks hurt from laughing. I lifted my wine and whispered to the air, "Robert, we made it." I could almost hear him chuckle. He would have loved the bread. Grace and I had spoken nearly every day since the confrontation. She helped me plan this trip, booked my flights, even surprised me with a new suitcase that didn't squeak like the old one. "You're living now, Grandma," she said, "so do it beautifully." Back home, everything had changed. David and Melissa tried at first to guilt me into reversing things. Then they switched to begging. Then silence. I let it all pass. They sold the big house, moved into a smaller apartment, and for the first time in years, started working harder. Melissa took a second job. David paid off a few debts. Brandon kept working with Mr. Whitman. He even called sometimes just to say hi. No requests. No strings. It was strange how much lighter everything felt when the guilt was gone. One evening, as the sky turned lavender over the Italian countryside, I sent Grace a photo of the vineyard outside my window. I wrote, "Italy is magic. Come visit someday, and I'll show you the little alley where they make coffee like a dream." She replied a minute later, "I will. I promise. You deserve this, Grandma. All of it. Deserve." Such a simple word. One I'd never let myself claim before. After dinner, I stood on the balcony. Eleanor was reading quietly, wrapped in a shawl, her tea steaming beside her. I leaned on the railing and looked out at the hills. The air smelled like rosemary and earth. The stars came out slowly, one by one, as if shy to interrupt the peace. I closed my eyes and whispered, "I made it." Yes, I had spent decades paying bills that weren't mine, sacrificing dreams I'd barely let myself have. I had silenced my needs, swallowed my hurt, and kept showing up for people who never once paused to ask if I was okay. But now I had stopped. Now I chose myself. My phone buzzed on the table behind me. A message from David. I didn't even look at it. Not because I was angry, but because I was busy living.